Hey everyone, Synthetic Future here, and today I'm here to announce not one, not two, but three new modules from Rware and Synthetic Future. This is the Vapor series of modules, and this would be a great time to be able to vape. Maybe I can do that in post. Okay, that's maybe a little bit much. Let me open the door. Alrighty, there we go, much better. Yeah, the Vapor bundle contains three LFOs in three tiers: a free tier, a medium tier, and a slightly more advanced tier. This project is actually a spiritual successor to a very old Autolus project I posted on my Instagram. So it's a little bit of a story time. So here we go. Let's open up Autolus and let's take a little look. So Autolus is a very cool modular environment on iOS. Now I run a PC setup, so I only have it on the iPad. And annoyingly, my iPad doesn't run the new version. So I was thinking I want to have this module, but I want to have it on a format I can run on my PC. So what is this? This is actually my Autolus patch, and quite a bit of work to make, but a lot of fun. So what it is it is a LFO with switchable waveforms. So you have your basic waveforms here. You can keyboard sync them, make them bipolar, and change the speed. That's all fine. But the real fun stuff is that you can actually combine wave shapes. And that's something we wanted to do with this as well. The fun thing here is that you can create very complex looking LFO shapes with very interesting characteristics. And a lot of these are happy little accidents. But sometimes, if you're careful, you can create just the coolest things ever, which work out very well for all types of weird modulation. And we all know modulation is key to a good sound. So it's important to have good modulators. So let me introduce you to the Vapor bundle, the Vapor series, and show you all the different tiers we have, and show you all the knobs and features.
Okay, so welcome to Voltage Modular. And the first two modules we will look at are VaporWaves and VaporDroplets, because these two modules are essentially the same. So that's easy to compare. As you can see, the VaporDroplet is actually one lane of the VaporWaves. And this is our free module. Now, just for the visual peace of mind, I will take out VaporWaves for a bit, and we'll circle right back to it in a moment. So what do we have going on here? So this is VaporDroplet, and right here at the top you have the shaper, which is pretty dope. Right now it's set to sine wave. You can move it here for a triangle, you can move it here for a saw, and then you can move it here for a square. Pretty basic stuff. The fun thing is you can actually move in between as well. So you can kind of create in between shapes. So that's pretty fun. Right underneath the shape you get the rate controls. The rate controls need a little bit of explanation. The right control sets the range of the rate, and this influences the left control. So right now it's set to 5, which means the left control, the far left, is 0, the middle is 2.5, and the right is 5. Right, to move this down to, let's say, 2. If it actually wants to update, which every so often voltage is a little bit annoying with. So let's just put it at 2. Now the most right position is 2 Hz, the middle position is 1 Hz, and left is obviously still 0. There we go. So you can actually pause the wave if you want to. Highest setting is 20 Hz, lowest is 0. And you can also place it into sync mode. Now the dial positions will be stored between synced and unsynced, as you can see, so that's pretty cool. And here you get a little bit of a different control. You get a 1 over whatever. So right now it's 1 over 8. This quarter notes is 1 over 4. You can also go to 16ths, 32, all the way up to 64, or all the way down to 1 over 1. But you can also go into odd times, like for instance 3 over 6, 3 over 7, 12 over 7, 12 over 5, any crazy thing you want to do here. The rate also has a CV input. Let's modulate that for a second. So you can modulate up and modulate down. And obviously that also works in sync to create some weird shapes. Cool. Let's move down, and let's actually slow it down a little bit so we get a little bit of a clearer waveform. There we go. Yeah. Moving down, we get phase. Phase is by default set to 05, and you can move it to the left. Or to the right. That's pretty cool. And I actually forgot to set something up, because the phase can also be triggered. And you can also trigger it manually with the little knob here. And phase can also be modulated. If you modulate both the phase and the speed, you can already get some pretty wacky shapes. Moving down, we get sample and hold, and this is actually very cool. By default, it's set to no sample and hold, and you can actually move it down. Takes a little while to get really visible. Here you can see it's starting to jag. And there it goes. That's a pretty cool effect. You can smooth out the sample and hold, which creates some pretty odd shapes. And you can sync the sample and hold, so the speed is actually in divisions. So we can have, for instance, a 1 over 16 sample and hold ratio. Sample and hold can also be controlled with CV. Which creates some pretty outlandishly weird wave shapes. And if you combine this with, for instance, smoothing, it's a little bit like a noise, continuous noise thing. And at the bottom of everything, you get the individual output, which has a gain. And right next to it is a offset, so let's make it a little bit smaller. So you can move it up, or you can move it down. And that's all the controls you get on Droplet. So let's bring back Waves, because Waves has a few more functions. with waves, you get 4 of these individual LFOs. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4. No, oh, I changed the scaling here. Right. The scaling is 5. There we go. Now we can change the shape of every individual LFO. We can change, obviously, the speed of every individual LFO. You get phase for every LFO, but there's a little extra trick here, and that's that we have a global trigger. So if you put a trigger into the global trigger, every LFO that has the global trigger on will be triggered. So right now that's LFO 1 and 3, which is 1 and 3. So when I push the trigger, you will see those two re-trigger. The rest will just keep running. But you can also trigger just a specific LFO by using the trigger gate. That's pretty cool. Saves a lot of routing. If you want to have multiple LFOs triggering, you don't have to put wires everywhere like this, which can be pretty sloppy. You can just take a single trigger here, switch on the global triggers, and you can re-trigger everything. No problemo. All the other controls are the same. That's not the interesting stuff. The interesting stuff happens here. So because we have 4 LFOs, we can actually mix these LFOs together. That's what's happening here with a master output. So this is our combined LFO right now. And we can actually move to the 4 individual corners for the 4 individual shapes. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can also move in between. There's also a visualizer down here to show the end result, because that's handy information. You don't always want to have a scope out, but just for demonstration's sake with the scope as well. You can change the range of these small scopes here. And this is where the really fun stuff starts. You can actually modulate this control, which can be done internally. So we can just take this here. Let's take that there. And this is where you start to get into really weird LFO shapes. And the mixed LFO also has a sample and hold. So you can actually sample and hold this as well. So let's go a little bit extreme so it's easier to see. There we go. And just like the droplet unit, you also get a sync mode. So you can actually sample and hold it in quarter notes or sixth notes or eighth notes, whatever you need. And this is a pretty handy little feature if you use it with like a quantizer, or maybe you can use it as a trigger to get irregular beats going. It's a very nice little tool. Very unpredictable, but also that's kind of the point. It's just to add some extra flair and weirdness to your sounds. That's a cool thing to play around with. Overall, you get 5 LFOs in a fairly compact little thing, especially because everything has individual outputs. You can just set your LFOs and use the resulting LFO for creative purposes. So that's the rundown of VaporWaves and VaporDroplet. Let's move on to Ripple. And here we are with Ripple. Now, many of the controls are kind of similar, so we still have our 4 outputs. There we go. We still have our shapers. Let's actually put them all in a different corner. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 4. There we go. But there are some minor changes here. We still have the matrix up here. So we can still make a 5th LFO, which is a mix LFO. That's the same. Also has a attenuator. But the change here is that we have a rate control here. This is your master rate. So every LFO is coupled to this rate. So let's say we put this at 1.4. There we go. So all the LFOs are now running in sync mode and all the LFOs are running in 1.4. The individual controls are relative to this. So let's say we're in 1.4. Let's put this LFO at 2. So this will now run in 1.8. All the others stay the same. I can run this in 0.5. And it will run in half time. So this is 1/4. This will now be running in 1/2. And all these controls are relative. So if I change my rate, I change all the rates of all the LFOs. And that's pretty neat because this allows you to really quickly change the speed of patches. So you can very easily double time or half time things, which I think is a very nice function to have. You still get individual trigger controls. So if you want to re-trigger something, you can still use the trigger. That's no different. And you also get a little phase control down here to change your phase. And you get a little attenuator down here to attenuate. This specific module we have chosen to include less CV for the sake of keeping it rather small. So it's really meant to be a very compact way to add 5 pretty flexible LFOs. And especially LFOs you can really quickly change altogether with the master rate. So if you're doing a patch or a song or something and you need to quickly change your tempo, you only need to change this rate. If you like a little bit more control, you can also grab control by Rware, which is pretty neat. You can link it to any knob, and then you can quite easily control it this way. Obviously, if you're a cool kid, you will not be using the cherry LFO. You will obviously use a VaporDroplet, but, well, for the sake of demonstration. So that's our Vapor-Series LFOs. Let's get into some examples of these actually controlling things instead of this rather silent demo.
And there you have it. That's the Rware Feed Synthetic Future Vapor Bundle. I think it's a very cool tool. I hope you will enjoy it and you will find great uses for it. And if you do, please tag me in your videos. I'm on both Facebook and Instagram. You won't find me on Twitter for reasons, but you can still just send it to me on another media and I will gladly share your content to show what you have done with our tools. So if there are any questions, drop them down below, let me know. And for now, have a great day.